A young black girl, Harriet, rises before dawn, folds the issued blanket, logs wake time, and secures boots tightly. She checks the ration slips, signs her name, returns the pencil, and waits beside the crates. A uniformed clerk stamps a ledger, withholds directions, and closes the drawer without explanation. Harriet lifts a canvas sack, adjusts the weight, and walks the dock edge deliberately. She accepts a folded map, initials the receipt, and hides it beneath her jacket. A bell rings late, canceling passage, removing time, and the ferry departs without her. Harriet records the missed crossing, submits the note, and remains grounded ashore. She cleans issued tools, logs, serials, and aligns them under posted regulations. A corporal rereads her pass, delays approval, and files it under review. Harriet shortens replies, nods once, and keeps her hands visible near her signs. She reroutes through marsh paths, withholding proximity to offices and patrols. A torn boot restricts her stride, removing movement, and she knots the leather tightly. The quartermaster denies replacement, records scarcity, and locks the cabinet. Harriet signs the acknowledgement, loses equipment, access, and steps away, silently. She delivers bundled papers inside an office, waits standing, and avoids speech. An officer issues verbal orders, revises them, and demands written confirmation. Harriet requests forms, receives duplicates, and copies instructions carefully. Ink thins, unexpectedly, slow in work, and the clerk removes the ink. She switches to charcoal, documents substitution, and continues without comment. The office closes early, erasing daylight time, and guards secure doors. Harriet notes the closure, submits the record, and waits outside in the rain. She surveys riverbanks, measures depth with a pole, and marks margins. A patrol appears suddenly, prompting her pause and lowered gaze. Harriet produces paperwork, allows inspection, and withholds explanation. The patrol keeps documents, delaying return, and gestures her aside. Harriet logs confiscation, loses navigation access, and alters planned route. She memorizes landmarks, shortens paths, and withholds further movement. An early horn sounds, ending travel and removing remaining daylight options. She camps near reeds, eats cold rations, and records position quietly. Morning brings a summons, delivered abruptly, requiring immediate attendance. Harriet records receipt time, folds summons, and departs without delay. At headquarters, clustered uniforms block entry, and a desk bars approach. An aide reorders reports, exclude this pages, and files them differently. Harriet's initials change, lose attribution, and accept altered copies. Her name shifts ledger sections, permanently narrowing institutional visibility. She waits hours, receives revised orders, and notes conflicting dates. The contradiction forces rescheduling, removing coordination time. Harriet rewrites plans shorter, omits contingencies, and submits them. A supply request returns denied, citing alignment issues, and is archived. She signs a denial acknowledgement, forfeits equipment, and repurposes cordage. An officer relocates her desk, reduces access, and locks drawers. Harriet inventories remaining space, records loss, and continues filing. She escorts a wagon at dusk, walking beside the wheels, counting turns. A bridge guard inspects passage slowly, consults notes, and delays crossing. Commission arrives late, forcing a reversal, and the wagon turns back. Harriet logs a reversal, loses progress permanently, and releases the driver. She returns alone, submits mileage, and records unpaid expenses. Payroll closes, deferring income, and her account moves pending. Harriet acknowledges deferral, tightens belt, and resumes assigned duties. She copies coastal charts overnight, tracing channels by lantern light. A supervisor removes a lantern, cites rules, and notes compliance. Harriet continues by moonlight, slows pace, and abbreviates markings. Later review flags errors, assigns fault, and corrects officially. She signs the correction, loses credibility, and files amended charts. Corrected charts circulate widely, excluding her initials permanently. Harriet records exclusion, maintains presence, and continues routine tasks. She attends a briefing silently, stands against the wall, and observes. Orders are spoken briefly, then withheld pending documentation. Harriet requests transcripts, recibes, known and records in absence. Time elapses, removing opportunity, and the room empties. She gathers discarded notes, documents, provenance, and submits copies. A clerk delays receipt, stamps a future date, and files them. Harriet adjusts the timeline, loses synchronization, and continues work. She surveys plantations from a distance, counts structures, and avoids entry. A sentry demands papers, keeps them, and restricts movement. Harriet waits motionless until the documents return incomplete. Missing pages erase access, and she alters observation points. She marks alternatives, shortens exposure, and withholds approach. Rain smears ink, erasing details, and forces rewriting. Rewritten summaries replace originals, narrowing verification permanently. She meets an engineer briefly, exchanges files, and separates. The engineer forwards recommendations, excluding her involvement. Harriet files a shorter response, referencing earlier submissions. A committee schedules a review, delays the hearing, and locks files. She records the schedule, loses initiative, and returns the equipment. Returned equipment is reassigned, reducing capacity permanently. Harriet acknowledges reassignment, adapts methods, and continues quietly. She prepares departure packets, seals envelopes, and labels destinations. A supervisor reopens packets, reorders contents, and reseals them. Harriet notes tampering, submits notice, and waits silently. Packets ship without her addendum, narrowing influence irreversibly. She files receipts, records, timestamps, and clears her desk. Orders advance through offices. Consequences persist, and her absence Harriet remains near the docks, checks posted orders, and records unchanged assignments carefully. A runner delivers revised schedules, removes prior times, and requests an immediate acknowledgement signature. Harriet signs the acknowledgement, shortens routes again, and secures documents inside the jacket. Uniformed guards redirect traffic, narrowing pathways, and blocking her earlier access permanently. She adjusts position, waits longer, and documents obstruction without explanation. An office window closes abruptly, removing consultation time, and a clerk files forms. Harriet logs closure, loses daylight hours, and proceeds alone deliberately. She inspects small boats, counts oars, and notes serial markings carefully. The harbor master denies launch, cites regulations, and records refusal formally. Harriet's initial refusal loses movement options permanently, and she steps back. She folds charts smaller, tucks them away, and waits silently. An inventory audit begins, delays departures, and removes shared equipment access. Harriet surrenders the borrowed rope, reducing capacity permanently, and signs the receipt. She adapts by marking distances through timed steps. She carries sealed orders across mudflats, keeping her boots dry deliberately. A sentry intercepts her, reads orders slowly, and withholds response. Harriet stands still, hands visible, until the sentry returns papers. Returned papers bear new stamps, altering authority and limiting discretion. She accepts alteration, logs it, and reroutes the approach quietly. A ferry bell rings early again, removing the crossing opportunity. Harriet records loss, waits ashore, and preserves documents carefully. She attends another briefing, standing farther back, avoiding notice. Orders are summarized verbally, then postponed pending signatures again. Harriet requests signature lines, receives blank pages, and files them. The delay removes coordination time permanently, and units disperse. She collects leftover manifests, records the chain, and submits copies. Copies circulate without attribution, reducing her standing irreversibly. Harriet notes circulation, adapts wording to be shorter, and continues working. She surveys shoreline warehouses, counts guards, and avoids confrontation. A patrol shifts routes, blocks the view, and cites security changes. Harriet documents change, loses observation access permanently, and withdraws. She marks alternative vantage points, farther away, and waits. The weather worsens, limiting visibility, and ink smears notes. Harriet rewrites notes, compresses details, and files them. Compressed notes replace originals, narrowing future reference permanently. She receives a requisition denial stamped twice, citing alignment again. Harriet acknowledges denial, forfeits supplies permanently, and repurposes scraps. She notes fabric markers, places them discreetly, and records placement carefully. An inspection removes markers, logs compliance, and issues a warning. Harriet signs a warning, loses credibility further, and removes the remaining markers. She shifts to timing signals, withholding visible cues deliberately. Timing logs replace markers entirely, altering the method permanently. She escorts another wagon briefly, walking slower, counting paces carefully. A checkpoint delays passage, reviews, manifests, and notes discrepancies. Harriet supplies documentation, accepts corrections, and releases the wagon early. Released early, the wagon returns, erasing progress permanently. She logs return, loses mileage credit irreversibly, and submits expenses. Expenses remain pending, income delayed again permanently, and noted. Harriet tightens routine, shortens meals, and continues tasks. She copies final charts under supervision, follows following altered standards. A supervisor removes reference maps, citing updates, and locks the cabinet. Harriet proceeds without references, abbreviatus, rotes, and records uncertainty. Uncertainty is flagged later, attributed to her, and corrected officially. She signs the correction, loses authorship permanently, and files amended charts. Amended charts are distributed widely, excluding her name entirely. Harriet records exclusion, remains assigned, and continues quietly. She prepares departure lists, checks names, and seals packets. An officer reassigns destinations, edits lists, and stamps approval. Harriet initially edits, losing influence permanently, and submits packets. Packets move through offices, bypass her desk, and ship onward. She clears remaining supplies, inventories nothing left, and signs off. A clerk redirects her file, reclassifies the role, and updates the registry. Harriet acknowledges reclassification, losing future options permanently, and remains present. She stands aside as carts pass, withholding movement deliberately. Documents stack higher, advancing without her signature or input. Verbal orders bypass her station, rerouted through other desks. Harriet notes, bypassing records, timestamps, and files observations. An office bell signals closure, ending access for the day. She waits outside, documents the waiting time, and returns later. Returned later, she finds drawers sealed and keys reassigned. Harriet records reassignment, loses access permanently, and steps back. She observes from a distance, counts movements, and records timing. Reports circulate with new headers, omitting her reference entirely. Harriet files copies, shorter now, and submits silently. A clerk stamps received, delays processing, and shelves them. Shelved records advance slowly, consequences continuing without intervention. Her workstation remains empty, reassigned, and unremarked. Harriet stands nearby, documents absence, and waits. Orders continue issuing, records advancing, and her absence normalizes.